Yeah.
Okay, I'm Molly. And our topic was workforce education, but it was the legal history of it. So it's kind of similar to some of the other presentations we've heard, but it's a little different.
Our learning objectives are to understand the significance of workforce education in the United States, become familiar with important laws, understand the legal evolution, and have a deeper appreciation and greater insight to workforce education.
So we had the same video that we just saw from Andy and Marissa, and we just wanted to show it because it provided some really good background information into the subject. And a lot of the facts are extremely staggering. Like, I didn't know half of the things that I learned. But yeah, so we found it out really quickly, and it just really goes to show you that career and technical education really does make a difference, and it, as we saw from the last presentation, it impacts like a really large part of our lives. So yeah, and it's just like the history of it is amazing, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Do any of you know how old workforce education actually is?
Old.
How old is old?
Old.
You guys know, like, year-wise? Just take a guess. Come on.
2,000 years.
Okay. Good guess. Workforce education is actually over 300 years old. And like we heard, it started with apprenticeships. And there was apprentices and there was masters. And the apprentices were usually delinquents or orphans. So they were kind of like, they wreaked havoc on the city, and they were just people that you didn't really want to be around. So the old Duluth-Staten Act was signed in 1647, and that was really like the foundation of vocational education. And masters were supposed to teach their apprentices academic and vocational skills because we needed to make them more intelligent. Otherwise, they would go around and do not so great things. So basically, back then, industrial education was taught as a means of survival, to work, to get your money, to get your food, and things like that. And now it just teaches us a lot of different skills that we're going to use for, the future. So.
All right, do you guys know what a land-grant college is? A land-grant college is a specific land granted to various places in America dedicated to university.
Yeah, and we actually have a land-grant college in Ohio. Does anyone know which one it is? It's up there. So. Yeah, it was Ohio State. And this act was enacted in 1862, and it was signed by President Lincoln. And it actually happened in the midst of the Civil War, so it was like a really big thing, to happen. And it created the land-grant college provisions, which taught mechanical and agricultural education. So mainly it was about farming, like how to farm and then how to use the equipment to farm correctly. So that's how it started. And the Ohio one was Ohio Agricultural and Mechanical College, and that later became Ohio State in 1878. And then it was just increasing in popularity. It's going crazy. So they expanded their curriculum a lot. And then by 1917, you were able to obtain a 4-year manual training degree, which kind of just expanded upon the mechanical and agricultural education.
Influential people and laws. Samuel Chapman Armstrong founded the African American vocational education so that former slaves could gain employment as laborers. And in the 1990s, Smith founded the Federal Fund for Vocational Education, and they provided training in agricultural, home economics, and other trades. And George T.
Those two acts, the George Dean Act and then the National Defense Act, that just redistributed federal funds because there was federal funds that were funding education like all over the place, but that just kind of specifically set aside funds for vocational education. And those laws really were influential in vocational education, but they weren't like really huge, noteworthy ones, but they still definitely impacted it. And then Samuel Chapman Armstrong, he is the one who founded it for the African Americans because, like we heard before, it was only for like mainly white males, and those white males came from really like affluent, privileged families. So it just kind of shows the progression of the movement. And then in 1963, the Vocational Education Act was passed, and that was a federal act, so it was mandated for all the states. And then this was a result of increased popularity of workforce education, and this law was signed so that we would have separate institutions for like vocational training, because prior to this, vocational training was only in high schools, and so now we have actual facilities that teach this that are solely dedicated to it, like the career centers and the joint vocational schools and things like that. And this was a major turning point in the education system because it expanded the definition of what workforce education was. Like prior to this, it was just like bookkeeping, learning how to do records, and things like that. But now it offered like work study programs, training, research, and then this is what actually allowed the business and commerce side of business education to come in. So you were learning like the financial part and things like that. So it really expanded it. And then this also really helped students with disabilities because prior to this, they were not eligible to go to these types of programs, and now they were offered with equal opportunities and things like that. And then it was also amended several times from 1968 to 1972, but that was just to adjust for the changing times in society because civil rights was going on, Vietnam, a lot of stuff was happening during this time. So the amendments really just adjusted for what was what was changing.
The 1963 Vocational Education Act of Ohio, it also made all schools, they must offer a vocational education program. Washington County Career Center was actually the first vocational institution for young adults. And other school districts offer joint schools, so many schools can come together in one.
There's an example of that would be JVS in Lorain County. I don't know if any of you guys have heard about that. But some of my cousins actually go to JVS. And what happens is they go to 2 years of public high school, so they completed their freshman and sophomore year, and then they transfer in to this program. And JVS offers business, early childhood education, any type of a bunch of different medical things. So my cousins completed freshman and sophomore year at their public high school. And now one is studying early childhood education and one is studying cosmetology. And cosmetology is also something that was recently added because it's growing demand and popularity. And then we have the Perkins Act, and the Perkins Act was an extremely influential piece of legislation, and that actually is what governs business education today. We still abide by the rules that it set up. And this law made it known that business education and industrial education is imperative to the future of society because without it, you can't really be a financially intelligent individual and you can't really make economic decisions. And it was really to benefit yourself. And then there's two goals from this act. One was social and one was economic. The economic goal was to improve the current workforce conditions and then also to prepare people for success and prepare them for the workplace. And this does create economic advancement because the more people know about things, the more intelligently they can make decisions and things like that. And then the social aspect was that it offered equal opportunities to adults. Because prior to this, it was mainly high school students and younger kids that were getting this. So we were definitely educating them to go into the workplace, but we weren't educating current employees that were there now. So now we get career technical schools, career centers, even community college programs, things like that to really prepare adults and to help them, advance within their own workplace. So that is what that happened. That's what the Perkins Act resulted in.
The Perkins Act was amended time from time from over 1990 to 2006. The amendments are known as it improved vocational education conditions and more occupational programs increased flexibility and greater connections between secondary and post-secondary education. It also helps students with disabilities increase opportunities, and it included customizable education.
And then lastly, vocational education is not just solely something we focus on in America. It's actually a global phenomenon, and it's like taking over many of the countries. So recently, there's a U.S. General Accounting Office study conducted, and it was to look at vocational education in America versus in foreign countries. And the countries that they focused on were England, Sweden, Germany, and Japan. So we got Europe and Asia in there. And there's many similarities, but there was also a lot of differences between America versus those foreign countries. And some of the similarities, one of the most notable ones, was that both America and these foreign countries all over the world, we support like students and like young people learning that, but we're also like very active in getting adult education going. So they're trying to educate their older people as well as their youth. And one of the differences that I found kind of remarkable between the various countries was in Europe and in Asia, they focused more on like preparing you for the workplace, and they help you with the job search, they help you with the interview process, and they're very like involved in that aspect of things. Whereas we just focus more on the trade, and those foreign countries, they explain your job requirements, they give you like, I know we offer services like mock interviews and things like that, but they actually do that within the classroom. Like it's something that you learn there rather than having to do it on your own. And I think that American business education and things like that can learn from these countries because, you know, we're all interconnected. We're all going to be, especially in business, you're going to be communicating with global countries like on a daily basis. So I think it's good to kind of learn from them and they can learn from us. And then there's also the European Union. They have policies regarding business education that's very similar to American policies. They just govern like rules and regulations, and that could be a whole nother PowerPoint like in and of itself, like presentation that we could talk about. So those are just really similar to American legislation.
In conclusion, vocational education has a long legal history. It began with apprenticeship, and it has transformed into the modern day training it is today. And it prepares students to achieve success and inside and outside of the workplace.
So from what you guys have learned about business education, if there's one thing that you could like add to it or change about it, what would that be?
I'll say something.
Okay.
I don't like how the apprenticeship parts of the education that we have now is at the end. Why isn't it at the beginning? Why don't you start out in the job and then learn how to do it better? Then it seems like the whole system is a little messed up.
Right. Does anyone else have any ideas?
I happen to agree with you. I also think that things have to change where people understand that a college degree is important and valued in our society and in our marketplace, both national and international. But if you can't do something with it, I just talked to somebody last week who has a philosophy undergraduate degree. And I said, so what are you going to do with that now that you've graduated? And he's working at Starbucks. And he says, well, I've got to go to graduate school, obviously. And I said, and then what are you going to do? And he goes, well, eventually I'm going to get my PhD. And I said, then what are you going to do? And I'm thinking to myself, the positions in philosophy, just philosophy in this country, are shrinking. And the positions in engineering and lots of other things are expanding. So I'm not opposed to getting a fine arts degree, but I think you really have to think about how can I apply what I've learned to something that I need. Could he go into, get a major in philosophy and get a minor in business management or entrepreneurship or something, where he could actually use it instead of just talk.
I think one thing that I would change would be like we should do like what Europe does and what Asia does. Like it's not just about learning the trade. Like obviously that's a super important part, and without it you wouldn't be able to advance within the workplace. But business and this kind of education is also about learning how to do interviews and learning how to speak with your employers and learning how to network and things like that. And I think that that's what what we're lacking. I think we need to have more of those kind of skills, because yes, you can do a trade, but it's more about, you know, talking with a person and being able to communicate with them, because that's what's gonna make you a memorable employee, because anyone can really, with the right education, do a trade. So I think that we should kind of go over it, like, take the foreign countries, what they're doing, and divide, remember that. And then that's just our website, and just all the sources we use to compile our presentation.